The solitary path, building empires from absolute. The awakening. There comes a moment, if you're paying attention, when you realize something that fundamentally alters your trajectory forever. You're scrolling through your contacts, looking at the people you thought would be there. The ones who said, "I got you," when times were good. The family members who claim blood is thick. The friends who promised loyalty. And you see it clearly. They're spectators, not participants. Observers, not builders. Commentators on your struggle, not contributors to your solution. This realization splits humanity into two distinct categories. The majority experience this as devastation. They interpret absence as abandonment. They feel the universe has singled them out for punishment. They ask, "Why doesn't anyone believe in me?" and use the silence as proof of their inadequacy. Then there's the minority, the architects, the empire builders, the individuals who rewrite their own narratives. They see something completely different in that same empty room. They see freedom. They see clarity. They see the removal of variables they couldn't control anyway. They see the beginning of something pure, success that belongs entirely to them because they forged it entirely alone. You're here because something in you recognizes this second path. You felt the weight of carrying ambitions that others can't comprehend. You're exhausted from translating your vision into language that diminishes it. You're done waiting for endorsement from people who profit from your stagnation. Stop waiting. The mythology that collaborative support is essential for achievement is perhaps the most successful psychological prison ever constructed. The great transformational figures throughout history, the ones who actually changed the trajectory of civilizations, didn't succeed because they assembled the right team. They succeeded despite being fundamentally misunderstood and often actively opposed. Today, I'm going to reconstruct your entire understanding of what independence actually means. Not just working alone, but weaponizing solitude. Not just accepting isolation, but architecting it strategically. But understand this. What follows will challenge every social conditioning you've received since childhood. We're going to dismantle the dependency programming. We're going to examine why needing others makes you weaker, not stronger. We're going to explore why the empty room is actually your competitive advantage. If you're uncomfortable with solitude, if you need constant validation, if the thought of walking into darkness alone makes you anxious, this isn't for you. Go back to the comfort of the crowd. They'll keep you warm, keep you safe, and keep you average. But if you're ready to understand why the most dangerous person in any room is the one who needs nothing from anyone, stay with me. Part 1. Deconstructing the dependency myth. The conditioning machine. From your first day of formal education, you've been systematically trained to seek external validation and collaborative approval. Group projects taught you that individual excellence is selfish. Religious institutions taught you that community is sacred. Society taught you that networking is the currency of success. Corporate culture taught you that team players get promoted while lone wolves get sidelined. Every system you've ever been part of has delivered the same message. You cannot succeed alone. You need others. Your value is determined by your connections. This isn't guidance, it's programming. And it serves a very specific function, keeping you manageable, predictable, and dependent on structures that benefit from your compliance. The economics of support. Let's examine what actually happens when you seek support. When someone invests in you, whether that's money, time, attention, or endorsement, they're not being altruistic. They're purchasing equity in your outcome. You might not sign a contract, but you've entered an agreement nonetheless. That investor now has influence over your decisions. That mentor now expects deference to their advice. That partner now has veto power over directions that don't serve their interests. That family member now has the moral authority to question your choices. You thought you were building a support system. You actually constructed a governance board for your life, and you're not the chairman. The ancient strategists understood this deeply. They recognized that accepting assistance creates obligation, and obligation creates constraint. When your success depends on others maintaining their investment in you, you've outsourced control of your destiny to variables you cannot manage. Every time you seek approval before acting, you're admitting that you lack confidence in your own judgment. Every time you explain your vision to someone hoping they'll validate it, you're diluting the clarity that made the vision powerful in the first place. The paradox of seeking help. Here's what nobody tells you. The act of seeking support is often what prevents you from receiving it. Think about the psychology at play. When you approach someone asking for help, You're signaling several things simultaneously. You don't have the resources to solve this yourself. You believe they have power you lack. You're in a position of need. You're uncertain about your path. Now, ask yourself, do people invest in confident, self-sufficient individuals, or do they invest in desperate, uncertain ones? The people who attract support effortlessly are the ones who don't need it. They're already executing. They're already creating value. They're already demonstrating competence. The support comes as recognition of capability, not as rescue for inadequacy. When you're searching for support, you're broadcasting weakness. And weakness, regardless of how much people claim to value vulnerability, repels opportunity. The 0 point. Absolute isolation as absolute freedom. There's a concept I call the 0 point, the state of having literally no external support, no safety net, no backup plan, no one who believes in your vision. Most people experience this as terror. You're going to learn to experience it as liberation. Think about it logically. If no one helped you rise, no one can claim credit for your ascent. If no one invested in your vision, no one can demand returns. If no one believed in you, no one can lecture you about staying true to their faith in you. You owe nothing to anyone. Your success, when it comes, is untainted by obligation. You built it. You own it. Every brick, every decision, every outcome, yours. This is the cold calculation that separates builders from beggars. We don't mourn the empty room. We recognize it as the blank canvas we needed. Part 2. The strategic advantages of isolation. Advantage 1. Absolute decision authority. Large organizations move slowly not because they lack intelligence, but because they require consensus. Every decision needs approval. Every change needs buy-in. Every risk needs committee evaluation. The more people involved, the more you have to justify, explain, and compromise. You, operating alone, can rebuild your entire strategy in an afternoon. You can pivot based on new information without convincing anyone. You can take calculated risks without navigating other people's risk tolerance. This is speed. This is agility. This is the advantage David had over Goliath, not strength, but maneuverability. When you have zero support, you have zero bureaucracy. You are a one-person insurgency against slower, larger competitors who require infrastructure to move. Advantage 2. Immunity to betrayal. Betrayal only exists in the presence of trust. If you trust no one with your core operations, no one can sabotage them. History is filled with empires destroyed not by external enemies, but by internal traitors. Partners who grew envious. Advisors who sold information. Friends who couldn't handle your success and subtly undermined it. When you build alone, you eliminate this entire category of risk. There's no co-founder to have a falling out with. No business partner to discover has been skimming profits. No team member to realize is leaking your strategy to competitors. Your isolation is your moat. It's not a weakness to be overcome. It's a defense system that's already operational. Advantage 3. The compression of competence. When you have no one to delegate to, you must develop comprehensive capability. Most people specialize narrowly because they assume they can hire or partner for everything else. This creates fragility. If that partner leaves, if that hire quits, if that vendor increases prices, you're vulnerable. You, building with zero support, are forced to become multidimensional. You learn marketing because no one will market for you. You learn sales because no one will sell for you. You learn operations because no one will handle logistics for you. You learn finance because no one will manage your money for you. This transforms you into something rare, a complete operator. Someone who understands the entire system, not just one component. Someone who can't be replaced because they contain the institutional knowledge of the entire operation. The specialist is a cog. The generalist who built the machine is the machine. Advantage 4. The filtering effect. Your lack of support is screening out people who would have made you weaker. Think about who typically offers support. People who want something. Sometimes it's equity. Sometimes it's influence. Sometimes it's just association with your potential success. But they're not offering support. They're making investments. And investors expect returns that align with their interests, which may conflict with yours. Your isolation has already performed this filtering. The opportunists have self-selected out. The fair-weather friends have revealed themselves. The people who would have drained your energy while contributing nothing have been removed from your equation. You're not missing out on help. You're being protected from hindrance. Part 3. Operating in ghost mode. The power of silence. There's a principle in strategic operations. The less your enemy knows about your capabilities and intentions, the less they can plan against you. Apply this to your current situation. Every time you announce your plans, you're providing reconnaissance to people who may not want you to succeed. Every time you share your big idea, you're inviting doubt, criticism, and energy-draining debate. Most people fail because they talk their ambition into the ground. They get a flash of vision, immediately tell 5 people, receive mixed feedback, and feel their certainty dissolve. Or worse, they get a small dopamine hit from describing the goal, which their brain mistakes for achieving the goal, and they never actually execute. Enter ghost mode, absolute radio silence about your ambitions. Don't post cryptic, big things coming messages. Don't tell family about your plans. Don't explain your process to friends. Don't seek validation for your vision. Work in complete darkness. Let the world be surprised by your emergence, not your announcement. Why silence creates pressure? When you have a massive goal that you don't release through conversation, it builds up inside you like pressure in a sealed container. This pressure becomes physical. It manifests as restlessness, as insomnia, as an inability to be still. Most people are taught to release this pressure through talking, through sharing, through seeking reassurance. You're going to contain it. You're going to let it build until it becomes unbearable, and then you're going to channel it into work. This is the conversion of psychological energy into kinetic action. The people with support systems release their pressure through conversation and never build up the combustion necessary for breakthrough effort. You're going to use the pressure as propulsion. When you're alone at 2 a.m., unable to sleep because the vision is consuming you, that's not a problem. That's your competitive advantage activating. The supported people are sleeping comfortably. You're building while they dream. The obsession prerequisite. Society has pathologized obsession. They call it unhealthy, unbalanced, concerning. They recommend work-life balance and sustainable pace and taking care of yourself. These are sedatives. They're designed to keep you operating at normal human capacity, which guarantees normal human results. If you have zero support, you cannot afford normal. You need exceptional, and exceptional requires obsession. You must know more about your domain than anyone else. You must be so technically proficient, so strategically sophisticated, so undeniably competent that people have no choice but to acknowledge your excellence. The advantage of isolation is that you have time for obsession. You're not maintaining relationships. You're not attending social obligations. You're not performing the exhausting theater of normalcy. Let the mask fall. Let the obsessive work. The world calls it madness. History calls it prerequisite. Part 4. The psychological warfare of self-reliance. Grieving the life you expected. This is the part that separates those who talk about independence from those who embody it. You have to mourn. Actually grieve. Not metaphorically, literally process loss. You thought your parents would understand your ambitions. They don't. You thought your friends would evolve with you. They won't. You thought you'd have a support network cheering your progress. You don't. This loss is real, and pretending it doesn't hurt is what creates the resentment and bitterness that destroys people on this path. Hold a funeral. Acknowledge that the version of your life where you're surrounded by supportive people is dead. Feel the sadness. Let it be heavy and real and painful. But then, and this is critical, let it transform into something else. Transmuting pain into fuel. There's a concept in psychology called sublimation, converting base emotions into productive energy. You're alone. That generates sadness, anger, fear, and sometimes despair. The average person numbs these feelings through substances, through distraction, through entertainment, through anything that makes the pain stop. You're going to feel it fully and use it as rocket fuel. Every person who doubted you, remember their face. Every opportunity that didn't materialize, catalog it. Every moment you felt invisible while others got recognition, store it. Create a mental furnace where you burn these experiences into pure motivational energy. This isn't about holding grudges or becoming bitter. It's about alchemical transformation. You're converting the lead of rejection into the gold of relentless drive. When you're exhausted and want to quit, you don't think about positive affirmations. You think, if I stop now, everyone who dismissed me was right. That thought should feel like touching a hot stove, impossible to sustain. You lurch away from it by working harder. The split self protocol. To survive and thrive in complete isolation, you must develop what I call functional duality. two distinct aspects of self that interact strategically. There's the human, the part of you that's tired, emotional, uncertain, and wants comfort. This part will always exist. Trying to eliminate it is futile. Then there's the commander, the part that enforces discipline, maintains standards, and drives execution regardless of how the human feels. The commander must be ruthless with the human. It doesn't coddle. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't accept excuses. When the human says, "I'm too tired to work," the commander says, "Get up. We have 4 hours of deep work scheduled." When the human says, "Maybe they were right and I should give up," the commander says, "We've discussed this." Their opinions are irrelevant. Return to the protocol. When the human says, "I deserve a break," the commander says, "You deserve what you earn. Earn the break first." This isn't self-punishment. It's self-governance. You've become your own parent, your own coach, your own manager. And since you have no external accountability, the internal accountability must be severe. Over time, the human grows stronger because the commander has trained it. The complaints decrease. The resistance diminishes. Eventually, the two aspects merge into a single integrated force that doesn't require internal arguments to maintain momentum. Part 5. The practical architecture of solo success. The protocol. Structure as freedom. Ironically, absolute freedom destroys most people. When you have no boss, no schedule, no one checking on you, the tendency is to dissolve into chaos. You need structure, but it can't be external. It must be self-imposed and self-enforced. The morning battlefield. Every single day begins with a battle. The alarm clock versus your desire to stay unconscious. This is not a trivial conflict. This is the most important battle of your day. If you lose to the snooze button, you've signaled to your subconscious that you're not in control. You've established that comfort overrides commitment. Win this battle. Every single morning. Non-negotiable. The rest of your day's discipline flows from this first act of will. The 4-hour advantage. You don't need to work all day. That's performance theater, looking busy to satisfy observers you don't even have. You need deep work. Periods of absolute focus where you produce at a level that seems supernatural to people who work in distracted fragments. 4 hours of genuine deep work. Phone off, notifications silenced, door locked, single task focus. Produces more actual progress than most people achieve in a week of being busy. This is your asymmetric advantage. Corporate workers are in meetings. Entrepreneurs with teams are managing people. You're executing at a level they can't match because you have zero interruptions. Information diet, protecting the asset. Your mind is your only irreplaceable resource. Contaminate it with garbage and you'll produce garbage. Stop consuming news. It's psychological poison designed to make you afraid and distracted. Stop watching content that makes you feel small, inadequate, or overwhelmed. Stop filling your consciousness with the mediocre thoughts of mediocre people. Read philosophy to understand human nature. Read strategy to understand competitive dynamics. Read technical material to build skill. Read biographies of exceptional individuals to calibrate your standards. The ancient strategists didn't study gossip. They studied excellence to become excellent. The evening audit, brutal honesty. At the end of each day, you must evaluate yourself without mercy. Look in the mirror. Ask, did I actually move toward my goal today? Or did I just perform the theater of productivity? If you move the needle, good. Analyze what worked so you can replicate it. If you just made noise, acknowledge it. Understand why. Correct the pattern. You have no boss to give you performance reviews. You must be both the boss and the employee, and the boss must be uncompromising. This structure creates containment for your chaos. It replaces the external scaffolding of jobs and institutions with an internal architecture of iron. Part 6. Navigating the dark psychology of isolation. The shadow integration. Most people spend their lives trying to be good according to social standards. They repress their darker impulses, ambition, aggression, pride, competitiveness, because they've been taught these are moral failures. This repression creates harmless people, and harmless people don't build empires. To succeed with zero support, you must integrate what Carl Jung called the shadow, the parts of yourself that society taught you to hide. Your ambition isn't greed. It's the drive to create value and claim the rewards you've earned. Your aggression isn't violence. It's the willingness to compete fiercely and win decisively. Your pride isn't arrogance. It's the refusal to accept less than you deserve. Stop apologizing for wanting more. Stop feeling guilty about your hunger for success. Stop pretending you don't want to prove the doubters wrong. These dark motivations aren't evil, they're high-octane fuel. When inspiration fails, and it will, spite endures. When motivation wavers, pride persists. When hope dims, anger illuminates. The fuel source, light versus dark energy. When you have support, you run on light energy. Encouragement, celebration, collaborative joy, positive reinforcement. When you're alone, you must learn to run on dark energy. Defiance, spite, revenge, metaphorically, and the burning need to prove your worth. Imagine it's 11 p.m. You're exhausted. You've been working since 5 a.m. Every muscle aches. Every thought is heavy. Light energy would say rest. You've done enough. Be kind to yourself. But you have no reserves of light energy. You're operating in the dark. So you tap into something else. If I quit now, person who doubted you was right. If I stop, I prove everyone correct. They'll never know how close I was. I refuse to give them that satisfaction. That's dark fuel. It burns hot. It's not pretty, but it works when nothing else does. You can switch to sustainable, light energy later, once you've achieved escape velocity. But to break through gravity, you need fire. The anti-fragile mindset. Stress as strengthening. When you have support, you have cushions. Fail, and someone catches you. Struggle, and someone helps. This prevents you from feeling the full weight of your decisions. When you're alone, the feedback is immediate and brutal. Fail, and you absorb the entire impact. Make a bad decision, and you pay the full price. This is actually a gift. It creates rapid learning through direct consequence. The supported person can make the same mistake repeatedly because the consequences are diluted. You make a mistake once, feel the full pain, and never repeat it. This is how you become anti-fragile, not just resistant to stress, but strengthened by it. Every challenge that doesn't destroy you increases your capacity. Every problem you solve alone becomes a skill you own permanently. The empty room isn't making you weaker. It's forging you into something unbreakable. Part 7. The Return of the Fairweather. The Inevitable Arrival. If you follow this path, building in silence, executing with precision, refusing to quit, something will eventually happen. You'll start winning. The metrics will improve. The revenue will increase. The recognition will come. The proof will be undeniable. And then they'll return. The friends who were too busy to help. The family members who questioned your sanity. The colleagues who dismissed your ideas. The acquaintances who ghosted you. They'll reappear with smiles and outstretched hands, saying things like, "I always knew you'd make it. I'm so proud of us. We should work together now. Remember when I told you to keep going?" They're rewriting history. They're inserting themselves into a narrative they abandoned. They want to stand next to the trophy they refused to help you carry. The final test, maintaining sovereignty. This moment is your ultimate test. The old version of you, the one who desperately wanted support, will be tempted to accept them back. You'll want the validation. You'll want to prove you're not bitter. You'll want to say, "See, they love me now." Resist this completely. You don't need to be cruel. You don't need to publicly reject them. You don't need to explain why you're maintaining distance. You simply become what I call glass. They can see you, but they cannot touch you. They can observe your success, but they cannot access it. Treat them with polite neutrality. Be cordial, but not close. Professional, but not personal. Pleasant, but not available. Understand this. Their love now is conditional. It's based on your utility to them. It's based on your status. And that's fine. That's human nature. But you don't build your inner circle on conditional affection. The only people who deserve access to your success are the people who were there when success was uncertain. Since you did this alone, the castle belongs to you alone. This isn't bitterness. This is strategic memory. This is understanding that your solitude wasn't a problem to be solved. It was a filter that protected you. Part 8. From Survivor to Architect. The Transformation. There's a point on this journey where something shifts fundamentally. You're no longer the person trying to survive despite having no support. You're the person who succeeded because of having no support. The isolation that once felt like a curse now reveals itself as the crucible that forged you into something rare. You've developed capabilities that supported people never acquire. You've built psychological resilience that comfortable people never develop. You've proven to yourself that you're the asset, not your network, not your resources, not your advantages. You are self-sufficient. Genuinely, completely, practically self-sufficient. And this creates something paradoxical. Now that you don't need support, you're finally in a position to give it meaningfully. The architect phase, strategic generosity. You've built the empire. You've proven the doubters wrong. You've achieved the goals that everyone said required a team. Now you have a choice. Do you hoard what you've built, or do you become the person you needed when you were struggling? Here's the sophisticated move. You become a strategic patron. Not to everyone. That would be repeating the mistake of indiscriminate help. But to select individuals who demonstrate the same qualities you had. The hunger, the willingness to work in darkness, the refusal to quit even when abandoned. You find the person who's working 3 jobs to fund their startup. You find the creative who's been rejected 100 times but keeps creating. You find the builder who everyone calls crazy, but who has that unmistakable spark. And you help them, not because you need anything from them, but because you remember the empty room. You remember what it felt like to have no one. You remember the power of one person believing when everyone else is silent. But you do this strategically. You don't save everyone. You invest in those who show they're willing to save themselves. You don't create dependency. You provide leverage that accelerates what they're already building. You become the mentor, the investor, the sponsor. Not randomly, but with the precision of someone who knows exactly how valuable strategic support can be and how rare it is. Remembering the darkness. Even as you succeed, even as people praise you, even as the world celebrates your achievements, maintain a connection to the solitude that forged you. Keep a piece of that darkness. Remember the cold. Remember the silence. Remember the nights you questioned everything. Let that memory be the anchor that keeps you grounded when success brings temptations to become soft, entitled, or disconnected from reality. The people who lose everything after achieving it are the ones who forget how they built it. They start believing their own mythology. They start thinking they're special rather than disciplined. They start surrounding themselves with yes men and losing touch with the hunger that drove them. You won't make that mistake. You'll remember that you clapped for yourself when the room was empty. And that applause, the sound of your own hands refusing to stop building, is the only sound that actually matters. Part 9. The ultimate reframe. The choice before you. We've covered extensive territory. Let me synthesize the core insight. Your lack of support is not a disadvantage to overcome. It's an advantage to weaponize. Everything you thought was weakness, isolation, independence, self-reliance, is actually your strategic superiority over people who've never had to develop these capabilities. The supported person is like someone who's been driven to the mountaintop. They're standing at the peak, yes, but they have no leg strength. They didn't build the endurance. They don't know the path. If the vehicle leaves, they're stranded. You're the person who climbed the mountain alone, who mapped the route, who developed the stamina, who learned to navigate in the dark, who can descend and climb again if necessary. The wind can't move you. The path doesn't intimidate you. The mountain is yours because you conquered it on your own terms. The psychology of the outlier. Let me be direct. This path isn't for everyone. It can't be. If everyone could walk alone in the darkness, it wouldn't be darkness. It would just be another crowded path. This is for mutations, for outliers, for the people who've always felt slightly incompatible with normal society. It requires you to be willing to look like a failure for an extended period so you can look like a phenomenon later. It requires you to suffer in private so you can shine in public. It requires you to develop the capacity to be your own entire support system. Parent, mentor, cheerleader, critic, accountant, therapist, all of it. Most people will turn away from this information. They'll find it too harsh, too isolating, too extreme. They'll go seek the comfort of the group, where they feel safe and supported and average. But you're still reading. You're still processing. You're still considering whether this is the path that's been calling to you. That tells me something. You're different. You've always been different. And your difference isn't a problem to fix. It's a strength to leverage. The people who need constant support, validation, and collaborative energy, they're not wrong. They're just optimized for a different game. You're optimized for solo missions, for building in darkness, for creating something from nothing with no help and no permission. The question isn't whether you can succeed with zero support. The question is whether you're willing to become the kind of person who doesn't need support, and then use that autonomy to build something that the supported people, with all their committees and compromises, could never create. Are you? Look around the room you're in right now. Notice the absence of cheerleaders. Notice the silence where encouragement should be. Notice the empty chair where your support system was supposed to sit. Most people see vacancy. You're going to see something else, a throne. That empty chair isn't waiting for someone to fill it with their support. It's waiting for you to grow large enough to fill it with your presence. Every empire begins with one person who refused to wait for permission. Every movement begins with someone who stopped explaining and started executing. Every revolution begins in the mind of someone who realized they didn't need the crowd's approval to change the world. The support you're seeking doesn't exist, but the person you're becoming by learning to do without it. That person is going to be unstoppable. So stop looking for allies. Stop scanning the horizon for saviors. Stop waiting for the moment when everyone finally believes in you. Become the person who doesn't need believers. Become the person who builds proof. Become the person who walks into every room completely self-contained, completely self-sufficient, completely sovereign. The empty room isn't your tragedy. It's your training ground. And when you emerge from this solitude, built, tested, unbreakable, you won't wonder why no one supported you. You'll thank them for their absence, because their silence taught you the most powerful lesson available. You are enough. You always were. Now go build your empire. Alone, as it should be.